present on.
awful high.
you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Linda Henry, and I would like to welcome Mayor Andrew J. Ginther, Member of City Council, and guests to the Reeb Center for the State of the City Neighborhood Conversations on Neighborhoods and Public Safety. I have been a resident of Columbus for 66 years and a resident of the South Side for over 50. I have seen both good and bad, and now I am seeing a growing, vibrant South Side. I'm very proud of all the work that's being done here. It is important that people work together to help our great South Side to keep growing and once again be a vibrant neighborhood it once was. As a resident of this great city, I believe in the importance of community-based approaches to build upon the success of communities. This is why I have chosen to serve as co-chair of the Reeb Village Committee and to be an activist. I am pleased that Mayor Ginther is bringing this conversation to the South Side because it is a very important step in getting our neighborhoods back. I love our great city, and I know that Mayor Ginther's leadership with the comprehensive safety strategy, we can and will get our thriving neighborhoods back. Again, we thank each and every one of you for attending tonight, and look forward to what is to come. Now I'd like to introduce Reverend Greg Henman from Community Development for All People, who will provide our invocation. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Welcome to the Reeb Avenue Center. We're glad to have you here today. My name is Pastor Greg Henneman, and I serve at the United Methodist Church for All People. We're also one of the 14 different tenant agencies here at the Reeb Avenue Center. As a person who comes from the Christian tradition and a person of faith, my favorite verse in all of the Bible is when Jesus preached in front of his home synagogue and said, "I've come to bring good news to the poor, recovery of sight to the blind, freedom to the oppressed, to let those imprisoned go free." And those words excite me because that's what we do here at the Reeb Avenue Center. We give people hope. We refer to this building as a hub of hope. So we proclaim good news to children and teenagers who are growing up. We bring recoveries to families who are broken. We bring freedom to people who have been limited by addictions or mental illness. We get people connected with opportunities for jobs, and we feed people healthy and nutritious meals. We bring people hope, and we live out all of those things that Jesus said that he came to do. So welcome again, and would you please join me in a prayer? Gracious God, we thank you that we are here because we are a people who have experienced hope ourselves. We are a people who have been brought out from our situations in life, and we have seen a light, and we have moved forward. And so we pray that you would be with us in this room, and you would be with our mayor and all of our political leaders, that they would have wisdom, that you would give them discernment and guidance to help those who are most vulnerable, to give hope to those who are going through hard times, so we can all lift each other up and live into all that you have created us to be. Amen.
Good evening and welcome to the Reeb Avenue Center. My name is Stacey Latina and I am a senior at Grove Point Madison High School. I am a member of my class's senior committee. I am on National Honor Society, a student council member, and I am a junior staff member here at my Boys and Girls Club. I have been a member of the I have been a member of the Southside Boys and Girls Club since the day it first opened in the Reeb Center in 2014. So that's been a really long time. I was named 2017 Youth of the Year of Columbus, and I am the president of my club's Keystone chapter, which is a leadership group that we have at a Boys and Girls Club. And I enjoy coming to the club because of the friendships that I've made. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is my last year attending the Boys and Girls Club, but luckily I will be attending college in the fall. I haven't exactly decided where I'm going to go yet, but I do know that I will be staying in Ohio. I know that I have been blessed with the opportunity because of my club. I have been given so many different ways to see life. They've taken me to college tours, and I really have not seen the impact until a couple of days ago when I was thinking about leaving the club. I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to introduce Mayor Andrew Ginther because I know he is committed to our neighborhoods, our community, and me. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you, Stacy, for that very kind and warm introduction. And as I was standing on just the other side of the door, I started the day at the State of STEM for the great metro schools, and the inspiring messages from the young people there, and to be able to have Stacy introduce me tonight just reinforces how incredibly bright our future is in this community. Thank you, Stacy. Welcome to the Reeb Avenue Center for the first of our neighborhood conversations. Thanks to the combination color guard from the Columbus Division of Police, Columbus Division of Fire. Thanks to Linda Henry for that kind welcome to the Reeb Center. And thanks to Pastor Greg Henneman for his invocation. I would like to take a moment, this is the most dangerous time of the night for me, to introduce and acknowledge all of the elected officials that are here or still sneaking in the door. Let me recognize City Auditor Megan Kilgore, Council President Shannon Harden, Council President Pro Tem Michael Stinziano. Stand up, give a wave. Councilmember Mitch Brown, Councilmember Priscilla Tyson, Councilmember Elizabeth Brown, and School Board President Gary Baker. Thank you for being here. Did I miss anybody? I'm sure I'll hear about it later. And I'd like to thank the Reeb Center, one of the great assets of pride and community here on the South Side, for hosting us here tonight. And a special word of thanks to two incredible forces for good in our community that helped bring the Reeb Center from a thought and a vision to a reality. And you can't be in this place without recognizing Tanny Crane and Jane Grody-Abel. Would you stand up and be recognized? It's a dynamic duo you best not ever bet against. I'd also like to thank my cabinet and my staff for putting together a very different approach to the usual State of the City address. I specifically would like to thank our Public Safety Director, Ned Pettis, our Director of Neighborhoods, Carla Williams-Scott, our Fire Chief, Kevin O'Connor, and our Police Chief, Kim Jacobs. Please give them a round of applause. And I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, and for those of you joining us via live stream. In last year's State of the City address, I laid out ambitious plans for our city to have a tangible, long-lasting impact on the lives of the people of our city. We set clear goals to ensure that every family in every neighborhood is sharing in the success that is Columbus. This is not a one-year plan. This is a multi-year collective community effort. And this plan cannot be accomplished without our community partners. See, I alone cannot fix it. We together can build a brighter future for our children and grandchildren. I'm excited to launch the first of 5 topic-specific neighborhood conversations that will allow us to have meaningful discussion about our collective priorities. We will discuss what is working well and explore where there are opportunities for us to work together even more. Tonight, I want to focus on 2 of the keys to the success of this city: strong, vibrant neighborhoods and public safety. Of course, these go hand in hand. In November, I launched the comprehensive neighborhood safety strategy to address 2 of the biggest challenges facing Columbus right now: the spike in homicides and the strain in police-community relations. The plan came out of a smaller version of what we are doing here tonight. Community roundtables that were held last fall with people and organizations from different neighborhoods, all with one thing in common: their love for our city. We listened. We heard what our neighbors say is working and what isn't. We listened to the challenges they see and the solutions they offered. The comprehensive neighborhood safety strategy is built on this feedback from the community, as well as critical insights from law enforcement professionals and data-driven proven practices from other cities. Our plan invests in efforts that focus on preventing violent crime, breaking up gang activity, and the drug trade here in our community. But it also focuses on engaging the community. Genera Alfano is a substitute teacher who lives in North Linden. She teaches K through 12, but her favorite grades are middle school, which for me means she gets a special place in heaven. She feels like she can make a difference with those kids. Genera felt the distrust between police and residents in her community. She heard the chatter on social media and among neighbors. She decided to do something about it. She applied to become a community evaluator to help us select police and fire recruits. Last year was the first year the City of Columbus had community evaluators. Our goal was to help recruit more diverse classes for our safety forces. The evaluators spent 5 weeks learning about the jobs of police and fire in our community, learning how to look for trustworthiness, empathy, and confidence in recruits. Genera wanted to be involved in this process to learn everything she could from officers and firefighters so she could go back to her community and help bridge the gap in trust. And we wanted Genera and her colleagues who served as community evaluators to help us recruit the best candidates to serve as our first responders. Genera would tell you that spending time with our police and firefighters didn't answer all of her questions. It didn't alleviate her fears entirely, but it gave her a perspective that she didn't have before. And the message she took back to her community was to work with city leaders and community leaders and civic leaders to find solutions together. The work we are doing in neighborhoods goes beyond safety, of course. We've been working in collaboration with the residents of LINDEN, the Neighborhood Design Center, and The Ohio State University to develop a roadmap for economic development and access to affordable housing, quality health care, education, and employment opportunities in LINDEN. We know this process has worked in neighborhoods throughout our city, Wyland Park, the Near East Side, and we think LINDEN's future is brighter than ever before, and we start that same process in the Hilltop in 2018. So tonight we're taking a different approach to the state of the city. I'm not going to stand here and give you a list of 5 or 10 or 12 new initiatives, because my vision for our city remains the same. For Columbus to become America's opportunity city, with the largest middle class of any city our size in the country, and a place you're more likely to go from poverty to the middle class and beyond than anywhere else in America. I want us to continue to build strong, vibrant, safe neighborhoods, to create a city where every person in every neighborhood has the opportunity to succeed. My initiatives cannot be completed by the city alone. We need partners. And tonight, you'll hear from some of our partners, people and organizations who are helping us reach our goals. Before I introduce our panelists, I want to remind you, as I had mentioned before this evening, this is not a traditional state of the city. This is not me simply sharing where we are and where we're headed, but also a call to action to each and every one of you here tonight and those that may be watching at home. We can't do this by ourselves. No one person can do it all, but every person can do something to contribute to a brighter future for this community. Tonight, for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to ask the panel some questions and back and forth on some of the issues in our neighborhoods, things that they're working on to serve the people of Columbus in partnership with the city and other partners. And then it's your turn. You all should have a card on your seat. If you have a question, fill out that card and make sure you get it to staff people here as well. We'll gather the questions and get to as many as time allows. We will likely not get to every question, but if you include your contact information, my team will get back to you and provide that information. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to our panel. Ryan Edwards is the Senior Director of Neighborhood Partnerships, the United Way of Central Ohio. Lori Francescon is the Chief Probate Officer for Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. Keisha Hunley Jenkins is the Senior Director of Mentoring, Columbus City Schools. Sheldon Johnson is the Managing Director of Community Development for All People. Denise Robinson, President and CEO of Alvis. And last but not least, Robin Watson, Chair of the Southside Area Commission and President of Scioto Southland Civic Association. Clearly, if I'm ever on the South Side, I need to be with Robin. So Robin, since we're on the South Side, let me start with you. As a neighborhood leader, what have you learned from the residents of the South Side regarding what they want in their communities? Maybe some signs of progress that you've seen, some things you want to see expanded, or things that have gone unaddressed that we as a city and a community need to take on?
Definitely. Thank you. First of all, Mayor Ginther, I want to thank you for this forum. This opportunity is wonderful. As chair of the Far South Columbus Commission and Scioto Southland Civic Association, the area I work with is mainly South 104. What our residents are seeing there is, well, what they want mainly is safety, stability, community. We have several of our residents that are, it's a good place to, what was the theme? Work, play, and raise a family, and to have an enjoyable retirement too. Public safety is a major factor for us. As we're all aware of the opioid crisis that we're undergoing right now, it's a cancer on our city, and it affects our residents a lot. I will tell you that as of March of 2016, our area became, and I'm struggling with the terms here, we became a priority red as far as CPD calls in our community, which means that that had escalated till they were more violent crimes. But we are also seeing a demise of block watches. Sometimes, and it's not that people are not concerned about crime. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't always have police liaisons. And it rightly so. I am understanding that there is a need for these officers to do other things within the city. And we are short on police officers. But, you know, it is important to have them at our block watches, our civic meetings, and our pride team meetings. Also, development. We want economic development in our homes, in our communities. We want community. Just in 2018, we will have a new rec center, Indian Mound. Will be completely remodeled, and that is such a blessing to our community. Our old rec center was built in the 70s, and it is a 3-room rec center. And actually, for people on the far south side, previously we really didn't have a place to commune. We would have to rent churches or try to get a room at the library, things like that. So that is a big plus for us. The addition of sidewalks, a major thing. We do still have neighborhoods, believe it or not, that don't have street lights or busy streets that over the years are now even busier. And there is no walkway, and there's no lighting there as well. People are driving 50 miles an hour, and it's not a safe situation.
Thank you. Thanks for your thoughts, Rob.
Thank you.
Sheldon, I know that you and Community Development for All People has been very involved in issues from emergency basic needs, as well as affordable housing, job training. Talk a little bit about what you see that's working on the South Side, or that Community Development for All People is putting to work in other places, maybe that we could expand or build upon here.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having the forum here. I think Robin really laid a lot of things out for what folks on the South Side want to see. I think through the work that we're doing at Community Development for All People, one of the things that we really see is that people really want to feel heard. That sense of community, that sense of being represented, that sense that they have an opportunity to determine what their future is going to be. One of the things that we're really focused on is trying to build those inclusive communities, but not just by having mixed income, different houses that are sitting next to each other, but actually building that social fabric and building different places where folks of different backgrounds can come together. So we're specifically focused on a fresh market that we're partnering with the city to open this year, and allowing that to be a place where folks from different parts of the South Side can come together and get to know each other, build that social cohesion. And that's one of the strongest reasons to have mixed income communities, is because you see folks that start finding that social cohesion. You start finding more of a voice and start having a positive impact in the work that they're trying to do in their lives.
What does, I had a leader from Wyland Park I met recently with a community collaborative, and she used the words radically inclusive. What does that do for a neighborhood, and what have you seen it do in your work with community development for all people?
Yeah, at CD4AP, we use the term radical hospitality. You know, I mean, we take the all people part of our name very seriously. And I think going back to the people wanting to feel that they have community, feeling like they're heard, it's important for folks in communities to really feel like this is a community where we're not just people living next to each other, but we're people who care about one another. We're people who are empowering one another. And I think that really fills into that radical inclusivity that you're talking about.
Ryan, I know you and the United Way have been very involved in that radical inclusivity taking place in Wineland Park, but also neighborhoods. You're working in Linden and so many other neighborhoods and on the South Side. Talk a little bit about, from your perspective, what does a safe and thriving neighborhood look like?
So thank you again for having us tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with folks we know well. Robin was one of our original Neighborhood Leadership Academy graduates, and so it's good to be back with her. And then as I hear Sheldon talk, I realize that we've both learned a lot from Reverend Edgar, and have learned a lot out of his community development playbook. So it's good to be here with all of you. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, United Way of Central Ohio has had the pleasure of serving in many different communities. Our agency network is very wide, doing a lot of great things across the city. Our staff, through our neighborhood partnerships work, have had the opportunity to work in places like Wineland Park, the Near East Side, Linden, the South Side, Franklinton, a lot of different places. So we've had good exposure, and I think that we celebrate the differences and the uniqueness of all of these places. That's what makes our lives fun and full. But I think when we are at the table and we're talking about what makes for great communities, we hear a lot of the same things. People want access to high quality education. Folks want to have access to jobs that pay a living wage. People want a place to lay their head at night, safe, decent, affordable housing. People want to be able to stay healthy. They want access to health care. They want to be able to make healthy choices and decisions for their families. People want to have transportation options that work for them. And to Sheldon's point, people want to do things, right? Like people want to be in relationship and in communion with each other. People want to be respected. They want to go home at night with their dignity in hand. And so when we think about the things that make a safe community, we can have big conversations about that. But a few things that come to my mind, and it starts with the idea that no matter your income, no matter your race, you can meet your basic needs. You can pursue and fulfill your dreams. Zip code does not determine the life trajectory of our kids. And then you kind of hit on it, Sheldon, strong social fabric. And so what that means for us, very, very basically, people being in communion with each other, people being able to share a meal, people being able to have front porch conversations, being able to walk down the street safely, being able to let your kids out and know that they're going to be safe, they're going to come home safely to you. One thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention is, and it's near and dear to our heart at United Way of Central Ohio, is a thriving community is one that's locally led and locally owned. Strong communities are not just built on the shoulders of institutions and organizations like ours. So appreciate that you say out loud, it's not just my responsibility, but it's our responsibility. And what we believe is that the equitable inclusion of folks who are living in neighborhoods where we're working is paramount to the successful outcomes of the things that we're trying to achieve. We talk a lot about making sure that we celebrate the gifts, talents, and treasures of the people that live in neighborhoods, the stakeholders and organizations who have been doing work in neighborhoods for a long time, and we are trying to commit to that in the way that we act in neighborhoods. Because at the end of the day, nobody knows these neighborhoods better than the people who live here. We have a role to play in lifting all ships, but at the end of the day, our efforts won't be as strong if it's not inclusive of neighbors.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Denise, talk to me about barriers. I know that Alvis works in partnership with us and so many others in the community. The stat was shared with me a couple years ago. I think Columbus has the second highest number of restored citizens coming back to our community every year in the state. I think at that point it was over 12,000 that were coming back to Central Ohio. Talk about some of the barriers that folks that you work with, but other barriers you see in the community that stand in our way of shared prosperity.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having me. I really hate talking about barriers because what we're trying to do is to break those barriers down.
That's right.
When we did talk that time, I was really interested because in our communities and in our neighborhoods, there's so many barriers for when those 12,000 folks return. Luckily, there is Alvis, there is, Impact, there's Urban League, there's all these agencies that we work together. But the barriers primarily are fears and misconceptions. In a lot of cases, people do fear them coming back into our communities. They do fear that they're going to commit another crime. They do fear that I don't want them living next door to me, or I don't want them in my neighborhood. But the fears and misconceptions that I really believe are there is that there are answers, there are solutions, there are programs. Alvis is one of those programs that provides the services so that people can go back into those neighborhoods and so that they can be contributing citizens. The biggest barrier that we're having right now, and Robin mentioned it, and I know you're going to have another neighborhood conversation about this, but it is the opioid addiction. 80% of persons that that are in the criminal justice system have a substance use disorder or a mental health issue. 80% of the thousands of people that are in our criminal justice system, when you look at those numbers, something has to be done. So, and I think Ryan said it, it knows no zip code, no color, no rich, no poor, no ethnicity. And so we have to be ready. Our communities have to be ready to, number one, accept our citizens back, but number two is we have to be open to providing the services for our clients. And the last thing with barriers, too, is that when a person commits a crime, they take the primary wage earner out of that community. And when they take that primary wage earner out of the community, then what you've left behind is mothers or fathers and children. And the children, all of a sudden, are in poverty. They have low education rates, and so there's a barrier to make sure that we have to get these kids the treatment that they need too. And that's why I think that you'll notice that a lot of the community organizations, we're stepping a little bit further. We can't just treat the person that comes through our programs, but we have to treat the kids too, because that's what's important to us, and that's what's going to put the communities back together.
Do we still need more employers? I know that, former Mayor Coleman started Restoration Academy that Alvis partners with us on. When it first started, a great reluctance. Mayor Coleman had to lobby and browbeat even members of his cabinet to give some of these folks a second chance. What we have found is that they're some of the most dedicated, hardworking, and now some of the city departments fight over those Restoration Academy graduates. We have far more private sector folks that have stepped up and say, we want to do our part. Well, what can employers do? What can the business community do to help support shared prosperity and stabilized neighborhoods, particularly with restored citizens? I
think they have to take a chance. Number one, I think that they have to look at what kinds of services and what have they been through from the time of the commission of the crime to when they're ready to go back into their neighborhoods. That's number one. Number two is I think, I know we do this, we actually run a program right here in the Reeb Center for people to prepare people for employment. And a lot of, again, some of those agencies I mentioned before are doing the same thing. What is attractive to employers is that certification for jobs that are providing a living wage job. And also when you have they're able to go back to the agency where they're providing services like Alvis, we're able to follow them. We're able to give employers that confidence to hire that employee. And also we follow them. We make sure that they're going to work. We make sure that they're there on time. Those kinds
The
of
ongoing
things are important.
casework and support
Absolutely.
that person needs.
Absolutely. And then I think that we're getting more employers that are wanting
Good.
to do that, and there is a tax credit benefit to that.
Good, good,
Yeah.
good, good. Lori, talk a little bit about the role of the courts and some of the things that you're doing that may be a little bit different than people maybe viewed the courts in the past around these issues around public safety.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So our department, the Adult Probation Department, supervises felony offenders sentenced by the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas. And our ultimate goal is to have an impact and reduce recidivism in our community. And what we know is that it's more than the judge says, you must comply and complete treatment, get a job, get your education, this, that, and the other thing. We know that we have to engage with probationers and look at the need areas that contribute to their risk of reoffending. And so what I mean by that is really getting behind the thinking behind their behavior. And so we do assessments and assess their level of risk to reoffend, and then identify those need areas that contribute to that risk. And we begin to engage in conversation about their goals, skill development, and in order for them to achieve those goals, we have to have a relationship with the probationers that we work with, because to Ryan and certainly the other panelists' comments, they live in our community, and our goal is for them to make better decisions so that they do not go back to prison, but ultimately they're going to come back out into our community. And so we spend a lot of time working on skill development, engaging with them and looking at the thinking behind the behavior. In addition to that, we're very fortunate to have the Alvis in our community, along with some of the other providers that are here today, as well as other community providers that we refer to for employment and treatment and that type of thing. In addition to that, the truth is that there are some offenders that may not be receptive to those supervision strategies and perhaps continue to engage in criminal behavior. And in those situations, we've done a really good job of maintaining our relationships with local law enforcement. If there is a criminal investigation going on that involves one of our offenders, we will work with them to assist in that investigation if necessary. We do a lot of community field work where we're doing field visits and transports and searches and those types of things, and we engage the assistance of law enforcement in those efforts as well.
Our chief reminds me all the time, our police chief, that in a city of 900,000 people, we have a very, very small number of folks that are committing the vast majority of crime and threatening the safety of this community. So intervention, reducing recidivism have important roles, but the best way to make a community safer is to prevent a crime from taking place in the first place. So this is a fitting time to talk to Keisha about how mentoring, summer youth employment, providing those very important, life-changing interactions with adults is for children. I've mentored, this is my second year mentoring at West High School, last year with Emily. I'll leave her last name out of it since I didn't ask for permission to mention her. And then Kara this year. Emily made successful, graduated from West, and up until the last 2 weeks we didn't know if she was going to, but enrolled full-time at Columbus State Community College, and we believe Kara's on the way too. At least I'll know next Tuesday when I show up over there in the library. What can folks here do to sign up to be mentors? What can employers do around summer youth employment, internships, externships? Because all those things play a meaningful role in making our community safer.
Absolutely. Thank you also for the opportunity. We really appreciate it. So as everyone has talked about here, everyone wants community, everyone wants to feel heard, and our youth are no different. In fact, because of the future of our city, we should really invest in that. And so often we wonder, what can we do to strengthen the community? What can we do? How do we engage? And mentoring is a way. Mentoring can be both formal, informal. Your regular interactions with youth, no matter where you are, is an opportunity to mentor. It's not an opportunity to tell somebody what to do. It's an opportunity to help them discover what they want to do if they don't know. If they do know, then your role is to help them on the path along to getting to, point B. So we're thankful for everyone who steps up to do that. Many of us, again, do that in many of our informal roles. but there are so many students out here. Just a couple stats from the National Mentoring Partnership. 1 out of every 3 students, young people, will grow up without a mentor. A mentor is defined as a caring adult who is someone other than a parent or an authoritative figure. So that could be an aunt, a cousin, an employer. So that's when we talk about summer youth employment. It's not just giving youth gainful employment throughout the summer. Actually, our youth need that year-round. Many of our youth, so employers, please. Our students have internship hours that they can earn. Many of them are eager. We can help through the mentorship program. I want to say that's another role of a mentor, is just investigation. What are you interested in? What would you like to learn more about? Our mentors are really first responders in a lot of ways. We don't expect them to solve the problems, but we do ask them to raise their hand and help us make those connections to things that our youth need to thrive. So what can we do? There's cards out on the table. This table out here by the food, not as attractive as the food, but there are cards out here. On the back, it tells you where you can go to sign up for our mentor program. Our mentor program is 1 hour a week. There's no contact with the mentees outside of that space, just because we don't have the capacity right now to monitor that interaction for both the mentee and the mentor safety. However, most of the things that you'll be working on with our youth, you will get academic updates to know where they are, because we are supporting them to and through graduation with an action plan post-graduation for what they're going to do. But it's primarily that social navigation, or if I'm having a challenge with this teacher, how do I approach them? We don't do that for them. You might give them pointers and go sit next to them to support them while they do it. So it really is that sort of skill development, both interpersonal and intrapersonal. And so please sign up. If our program is not a good fit for you because you can't do it during the day, we have launched a community-wide mentoring recruitment piece. It's called the the Columbus Mentoring Alliance. And what that is we've partnered with Mentor Central Ohio, formerly the Mentoring Center of Central Ohio, and we're recruiting for all of our mentorship programs. So again, if our program is not a good fit, we will connect you with a program that is.
What are some of the early results you've already seen out of the mentoring program?
Sure, so I can speak for our program. Our first year, which was 2015, we didn't even start mentorship until February because we came in December. In that year, we worked with 86 students, 73 graduated, so that gave us about an 85% graduation rate. In 2016, we worked with 272 students, 228 graduated, giving us about an 84% graduation rate. Again, all of that is not attributed to the mentors, but the mentors certainly play a role, particularly as senioritis hits. And there's some tension at home between someone turning 18 and still being under the roof of their parents, but also being treated as adults in some ways. And so there's some unspoken tension there that we often work through as well.
When I know the young women I work with, it's not something that totally surprised me based on the family that I grew up in, the household I grew up with, foster brothers and sisters. But some of them have a great deal of instability at home.
Yes.
In addition to their senioritis and all the things that happen. And so sometimes the mentors are kind of the one place they have to check in a week to offer some positive reinforcement or redirection that all teenagers need, and how important it is. So.
And I would just echo that and just say, whatever you do to involve yourself with youth, you know, one touch matters. You could plant a seed. But please, if you sign up for these mentoring programs, the worst thing you can do is not show up. You have to show up. These students, as he said, have a lot of instability. So just the fact that you show up goes a very long way. It shows them that they matter. It shows them that no matter what, if we're having a rough patch in our relationship, you're still going to be here next week. And that's enough to get you over a hump.
Robin, you wear many hats. I mentioned 2 of them when I was introducing you, and we're grateful for your service to your neighborhood and to this community. What would you say, you know, I said tonight wasn't just a state of the city for me to report out, but a call to action, because all of us have a role to play and for us to realize our full potential as a city. So what do you say to your neighbors, not just on the south side, but in other parts of the city, to get them involved in their civic association or their area commission? You had talked earlier about the block watches. What's your message and call to action for folks in Columbus?
Well, I'll give you a little example of myself. I attended the very first meeting of the Scioto Southland Civic Association. At that time, it was formed by Eunice McMullen, and it was called Save Our South Side. I was a young mother going to school, 3 children in elementary school, And, at that time, my life was waking up early, going to school, working all day, and then usually sitting on a gym floor or in a hall or something doing my homework. But I thought that civic association was the best thing since sliced bread. To think that people could talk about their community and make changes in it. We all tend to buy into this impression that we can't fight City Hall, that it is a monster, and that we can't go against it. But these changes within our communities change our cities. Anyone interested in becoming active, my best advice is to just do it. There are so many resources. I won't go back to, when I started out there weren't that many, but I will tell you, we have the Department of Neighborhoods, we have the United Way, we have the Pride Team. If you really feel that fire in your belly to become a leader, the Leadership Academy, I will tell you, was probably one of the most beneficial experiences I have had in my life. Those resources are there. Don't and never, ever, ever be discouraged. What we do involves a lot of persistence, a lot of persistence. It doesn't happen tomorrow because we've conceived the idea today. And our idea is not always, believe it or not, folks, the best one. It is collaboration all the way around, and to be willing to work with people. It's just a drive to make our communities better.
I think somebody said it even better than I will try to reconstruct at this point, but we are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek to make. And so I appreciate that call to action. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step, into that civic association meeting, into that area commission meeting, into that block watch to make our communities safer and stronger. Sheldon, talk a little bit more about some of the public safety initiatives that Community Development for All People is involved with.
Well, we don't really have any specific public safety initiatives, but I think just the work that we do in community and really trying to build, again, that social cohesion and that social fabric. One of the big things that I think we offer, I'm going to butcher this, but there's an author named Byron Stevenson, and he wrote a book, the title I don't remember, but he said basically, we're all more and we're better than the worst thing we've ever done. And I think doing the long, hard work, when Reverend Edgar and others started Community Development for All People 15 years ago, being in relationship with people and giving them an opportunity to make mistakes, to fall down, to make bad decisions and leave and come back. That's really a part of doing this, work of social cohesion. It sounds good, right, that we're building social cohesion, but it's not always all positive. But I think that the consistency that we've offered in the variety of the programs that we do, what really undergirds the work that we do is really, like Ryan said, trying to work with community members to figure out what is it that you want, how can you reach your hopes, dreams, and aspirations. And when you can have a community that really becomes a neighborhood, that really affects the public safety and feelings of safety and this feeling of belonging in a community. And I think that's what we've seen in the parts of the South Side we're active in.
And how are things going with Career Gateways, the project here on the South Side? And I know that it's a great opportunity in partnership with Nationwide Children's and others. Where do we stand there, and are there other opportunities like that? That I believe is a direct contribution to neighborhood and public safety. If you can help train, house, offer the support services that folks need, that residents need in the neighborhood, and most importantly, a meaningful living wage job at the end of that process.
Well, things are going well. We are still looking for more employers, but since the last time you were there at the ribbon cutting, we're having classes there. Folks are having classes on making budgets. There's Nationwide Children's Hospital is our lead class there. Folks are really learning about what they need to do to be able to become an STNA, things like that. But really what we're continuing to work on is build more partnerships partnerships. We need more employers who are going to bring opportunities to really do that workforce development in the community. And we knew that was a long-term plan, of course. But we have classes that are happening in the training center. Community members are meeting with civic associations, are meeting there and across the South Side, and we're just looking for more opportunities to make that an asset for the community.
Lori, talk a little bit about some of the partnerships that you have outside of the court system. You spoke a little bit about it, but what other community resources and community partnerships can you utilize or leverage more effectively if folks stepped up?
Right. Most importantly, we're fortunate to have Denise Robinson and Alvis here on this panel this evening. We utilize Alvis services a lot. The hire program, the treatment services, educational services. We actually are in a partnership with Alvis and Talbot Hall, and we run an opiate treatment program to address the opiate addiction in our community, which has been very, very successful. Alvis helps run the detox residential side of that program, and then Talbot monitors the medical, and then we go through and do the probation supervision side of that. We have a Medicaid navigator that comes into our office several days a week who is available for 2 to 4 hours, so we can assist offenders getting linked up with services through Medicaid and the services that they could enjoy from that connection. We have a mental health agency that comes into our office several times a week, and we do screenings and get them linked up for treatment. We're fortunate in Columbus to have resources around treatment, education, employment, and we refer probationers to those services on a regular basis. What I will tell you is that the more involved that we are in getting probationers the services they need, the more successful that they are. And even just that active engagement in doing a dual role and being a part of their success goes a very, very long way. And even so much to this, we do surveys in our department with the offenders, what's their experience with their officer, what's the experience with their provider, and that type of thing. We get that kind of feedback, and overwhelmingly when we get positive feedback around that. Our officers also participate in treatment team meetings in various treatment agencies so that they can discuss their case plan and their goals and the different things that they're trying to achieve through that. So we work extensively with the community. We wouldn't be able to supervise effectively without those resources.
Let's talk collective impact. And maybe we'll put Ryan on the spot to start off. But I think the gist of it we've gotten from all the conversation here tonight. But talk about that power of collective impact when you're talking about neighborhood and public safety.
Yeah, thank you for the question. United Way is very committed to collaborative work and the idea of collective impact. We really started some of that work under the leadership of my former leader, Janet Jackson, who's in the audience tonight, and under new leadership, Lisa Cordes, moving forward with that, because we know that we can't just focus on isolated impact that individual organizations and agencies make. It's not going to be just one of us looking at an individual issue to make impact. It's all of us. It's taking a look at what those combined contributions look like and driving towards collective work. So it's something that we're very committed to at United Way. We found ourselves a part of multiple different collaboratives in town. The first one that we must mention is one that you brought up earlier, is the Wineland Park Collaborative. It's really, it's one that we hear a lot about, and I really think it's a true gift that we've had in Columbus. It was, I think, sort of ahead of its time in collaborative work. It's been many folks.
Didn't happen overnight, though, right?
No,
I mean, it's 15 years.
Yeah, two decades in the making. And I kind of think about the Wineland Park Collaborative in line with everything I ever needed to know I learned in kindergarten. I think that Columbus has been given that gift in that many things that we know about collaborative work we learned through Wineland Park. I acknowledged earlier that not all communities are the same.
Sure. And
what Wineland Park has done for us is given us a good idea of what building an infrastructure around community improvement looks like, and it's given us an infrastructure around how we can work together as institutions and be inclusive residents, and not only including resident voice, but in making sure that residents are part of the co-design, co-creation, and production of solutions. The Wineland Park Civic Association has been one of the strongest civic associations in the city for a very long time, and we've learned a lot from them. That's one of the reasons that United Way's got involved in leadership development, because we know that that's really important to moving communities forward. Another piece of work that we've been involved with here on the South Side, which is an emerging collaborative, is the South Side Thrive Collaborative. It's a collective impact initiative where we're working with folks like Nationwide Children's Hospital, Celebrate One. Mid-Ohio Food Bank has really shepherded and helped to lead that work, and we're sort of in the process now of figuring out how, as institutions, organizations, and residents, we can work to advance outcomes around housing, health, and income mobility here on the South Side. So those are a few that came to mind, and kind of in preparation for this question and thinking about it, the saying comes to mind: if we want to go fast, we can go alone, but if we want to go far, we go together. And I think that all of us who are in this work, we want to go far, meaning that we want to make deep impacts. We can operate in our individual silos and achieve kind of those isolated impacts, but if we really want to make a difference and sort of push the agenda that you're setting for the city forward, it's going to take all of us, and we're going to have to move together to make the kind of deep impact that we're looking for.
What else? Collective impact. How do we grow this circle of success? 2/3 of our city is doing very, very well. Fastest growing economy in the Midwest, lowest unemployment in 25 years, AAA bond rating for all the rating agencies. You've heard my shtick before. How do we make sure that 1/3 of our neighbors who aren't sharing in our success, how do we use collective impact in your work, in your spheres, to provide that shared prosperity we're seeking for everybody, regardless of the neighborhood?
I think one of the challenges that we have is trying to figure out how to do things outside of the organizational reach. For example, in all the neighborhoods that we work in, there's area commissions and there's civic associations, but there's neighbors in those communities, for whatever reason, aren't engaged in those bodies, and figuring out how to do the difficult work of maybe they're not coming to a meeting on a Tuesday night, but still figuring out how to best reach them and engage them on what that success story is. And I think something else that, Ryan and the United Way of Central Ohio has really challenged us in the work that we've done together is having the difficult conversations of really defining what is impact. There's a lot of things that, good programs that have been funded and are operating for a long time.
Output versus outcomes.
Exactly. So we're doing this, we're handing these things out, but to what end? And I think if we're really going to have that large impact that we want to have, we're really going to go far, like we're speaking about, we need to be able to be comfortable, in those hard places, doing the hard work and having those hard conversations.
So if folks haven't written up questions, make sure you do that and get them to our staff right away, because I think we're moving to the wrapping up and doing Q&A. Talk a little bit, Keisha.
Just to piggyback on that, I think that one of the challenges that we have when we're talking about more, like when we talk about economic development, we have very clear goals and timelines. But just as Sheldon was talking about, we haven't really said we want to see X amount of reduction. We say we want to end homelessness, we want to end hunger, which we do. But what then are the benchmarks to get there? What are we going to do 5 years from now? How is our Columbus community going to look different now, from then? And
are we making progress every year?
Exactly. And I think that if we're able to agree on where we want to at least put that first stake in the ground, then folks can say, I got this, I got this, I can call them because I know they have that. We can't boil the ocean, we can't have 500 goals, but we could have 3. And I think that that's a good place to start, because then it helps us align naturally. I think there's some fear when we hear collective impact, when we think about funding, when we think about this is my wheelhouse and I'm really good at this, but I know that my clients need A before they come, C when they leave to be successful. Do I expand to do that, or do I partner? And I think that sometimes those conversations are scary and uncomfortable, but if we have those goals and we agree that as Columbus, these are our goals, I think people will feel a little bit more at ease, right? We have that social cohesion and that community that we're working together and not competing.
It's one of the great strengths of this community, right? Why aren't we more openly using it, aligning and leveraging it for collective impact. Denise, Robin, any other comments?
Yeah, one of the things that I always think about is I've been with my organization for 34 years, and I was 12. Don't forget. But
It's a summer job.
That's right. So I did always think that we could do it all, that Alvis could do it all. Nobody likes our population, so we can do it all. I'm really proud of our statistics. 79% of the people that complete our programs do not return to the criminal justice system. But thank you. But that is not after 1 year. That's after 3 years. And because most people, they measure success based on a year or based on 2 years. I don't think you're successful unless you've got 3 years and you're still moving that way. However, we didn't get there by ourselves, and that's why I said, the collective impact is using other organizations for things that we don't do. One of the things, when we talk about civic organizations and we talk about the neighborhood associations, we're really involved with that because when our citizens return to neighborhoods, we need to educate that neighborhood. And you're right, a lot of them don't come out to those meetings. So what we've done is we started hosting meetings at some of our locations so that they will get comfortable with our population. But what really is interesting too is our clients made $2.6 million in wages last year. And that is really, really something to say that they raised that money. But that was help. They got help from other organizations, but also the community organizations. So, and then they're more accepted to go back into those neighborhoods because they see, oh, they're contributing to our neighborhood. So those are just some really interesting things. And then the last thing is 38,000 hours of community service our population did. Again, that is from neighbors and requesting that help. And that actually equates to about 18 full-time positions when you take a look at it. So I mean, those are things, but we couldn't do it by ourselves. I thought we could, but we can't. We have to extend that net.
Any thoughts, Rob?
Sure.
You should know a thing or two about collective impact, being part of an area commission and leader in a civic.
Sure, and a lot of what we do is collaboration. For example, our National Night Out this past year was a collaborative with Indian Mountain CRC. We used a grant from the Department of Neighborhoods and our Civic Association and our Block Watch. And people came out for that. We were able to provide basic school supplies for children and a book bag and entertainment. And we were able, while they were there, to tell them who we are and what we're trying to do and how does this affect your community. Also, during our winter party for the past 12 years, I believe, we have been giving one toy to any child that comes into Indian Mountain for the party. There is no way of registering. There's no, we don't care where you live. We don't care what your income level is. We don't care about any of that. We just want to love you with this toy. And they can pick out what one they take. And just basically on the premise, people may not know who we are, but they'll know how we make them feel. And these children, they look forward to it every year, and that is one thing. But, while people are there, we can say, this is what we're doing, this is what we're striving for, this is where we're going with our center, our civic, our block watches, and so on.
That's great. Any other closing comments on collective impact? I do have a few questions. Anybody dying to share anything collective impact-wise? Well, let's get to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Person, relationship, and I think that's what everybody's saying. Radically hospitable. That's what we're talking about. Is going the extra mile to form that relationship. You can't force people to do anything they have to want to, and for that they need to want to be around you.
So I have thank you, Keisha. We have a question here from Nancy Kelly. It seems that gangs are the source of the many killings in neighborhoods. Is there a way to prevent gangs from forming and to prevent their being able to continue? Is communication possible in any way? Have psychologists studied this topic? I'm looking to Lori and Denise probably to start us out, but feel free to jump in. You know, what types of things can we be doing as a community to intervene with gangs, prevent young people from joining gangs? Do we understand the psychology around why young people are joining gangs?
Well, I suppose I can speak to the sense of what we hear from the offenders that we supervise, right? And so when we engage in that conversation, you know, what led you to this place, you know? And I think a lot of it has to do with how the circumstances in which they were brought up. We may be the only pro-social interaction that they may have on any given day. And so if that is the truth, I mean, that's a lot.
The probation office.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of stuff to work through. And so it starts from, you know, oftentimes we hear about, I don't have any mentors. I don't have anybody that is a positive or pro-social individual in my life. And so we have to break down barriers just for the very fact of the authority, the assumed and the perceived authority that we have. And so it's important for us to build that relationship, to build trust, to break that down, to get to the meat of what led to that. I think, again, utilizing the available resources in the community and tapping into our faith community. There's a lot of individuals and resources in our community that want to be there for those individuals that we supervise. I'll say to guys all the time, just go to the Urban League and hang out in the lobby. Just be around other pro-social people, and they're going to pick you up and they're going to walk you through and try to put them in that direction. I think we have to learn from them and the experiences that they've had. I don't know a lot about gangs in general and the makeup of all that, so I can't speak to that. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of it comes to targeting our young and getting them involved with positive pro-social.
Yeah, not necessarily expertise in gangs, but I think Nancy's question is, you know, how do we prevent the proliferation and the growth and the spreading? And what we're seeing is younger and younger are joining, and more girls.
Yeah. I just want to speak quickly to it, because what we're seeing, though, is because, again, I'll go back to when you take a person that commits a crime and you take that person and goes to prison. And what's happened is a lot of times is our kids have seen more things. Our kids of our clients have seen more things than you and I could ever imagine. You know, they've seen their mother stick a needle in their arm. They've seen their moms dragged off to prison. They've seen their moms raped and beaten. And so what happens is that maybe, I'll just use an example, maybe dad's gone and mom was left behind. Mom's drug addicted. So what happens? They have to find someone that will love them. And what happens when they find someone that loves them, it ends up being a gang. And they're also trying to emulate their parents. And so things like the mentor, you know, that's just like the best thing ever for that population, because they've not been talked to as people. And so it's just kind of unwielding. We have a psychologist that had done some studies on gangs and how they form, number one, and what can we do about it? Because you don't see them as much, but they're there. You know, but it is a part of, I need to be loved.
I saw Sheldon. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to add to that in the sense of, when we look at need areas that contribute to one's risk to reoffend, the lack of pro-social support and family support is within the top 4. And that is antisocial thinking, antisocial peers, antisocial personality, and lack of pro-social family support. And so it's really important when they come through at our system, we have to start breaking down that to get to that, again, get to that thinking behind the behavior, because that is the #1 contribution to criminal risk.
And if they have barriers to employment, housing, and have no family network and support, you know.
Well, if Javier was here, he would say, you know, people opt into tribes. And the 3 things that they look for is provision, meaning some sort of sustenance or money or what have you, protection, right? And the last one is promotion. So you can elevate in a gang. You can become somebody that's a leader, or you may already be a leader just by joining. So you're going to look for those things in your life, and so you're going to get them where they're readily available.
Anybody else want to touch base? I know we've got a couple other questions to cover. Here is a question, and I think it's directed, some of these questions are directed particularly at the chief or the safety director, chief of police, Chief Jacobs, or Director Pettis. And what I'll do at the end is read off the people's names with some of the specific questions and ask Chief Jacobs if she will talk with folks afterwards so we can give precise, exact information, or at least give our best shot at it tonight. But there's a question here about non-traditional police officers. This is from Jake Cunliffe. Jake, am I pronouncing the last name correctly? Yes. All right, Jake Cunliffe. What research has the city done on non-traditional police officers that are specifically trained to build community? For example, the UK has police community support officers, PCSOs, that are partnered with traditional officers on patrol. So I think most folks understand we have community liaison officers, we have student resource officers in our schools, we have diversity and inclusion liaison officers, are all, I think, of that mindset. So I'll let the chief talk directly with Jake about this, but talk to me a little bit about proactive community policing and the need for that and the impact that can have in a community.
I think when we talk about the tension between certain parts of the community and the division of police, I mean, it's been shown that having community policing as opposed to kind of the broken glass policing of the past is more effective in kind of mending that distrust. And it's not something that was started yesterday. It's going to take time, and of course there's considerations of the funding of the police force, the number of officers, the size of our city. But I think as much as we've seen on the south side, talking to neighbors, and again kind of going back to the social cohesion, wanting to have their dignity intact, I think engaging with all aspects of the government, other institutions, and the police force in particular, that's something that neighbors are hungry for and they're looking for.
We clearly heard about our Safe Streets pilot that we did in LINDEN last year. We, under this chief's leadership and embrace of community policing, now have the largest bike patrol, I think, of any division in the country. And that pilot put officers out of their cruisers and on bicycles, in LINDEN. And when we were there for Neighborhood Pride, I was surrounded by folks who were praising that and talking about the positive connections and the relationships they were able to build with officers when they had an opportunity to interact with them on the street in a proactive, positive way, as opposed to simply running into them when they were on calls for service or enforcement, which officers are in high demand. This is a city of 900,000 with a significant amount of miles to cover. But talk a little bit maybe about your experience with community policing. Denise, you want to take a shot?
Sure. We see a lot of them. Alvis is in probably, I don't know, 6 or 7 neighborhoods, and we've talked to neighbors about the community policing, and also we hire off-duty police officers in most of our locations, and that's not just for us, but it's for the neighborhood, and it's to patrol the neighborhood, to talk with neighbors. And one thing that I've heard is that can we sometimes have a consistent officer? Because we get a relationship and then that person goes away or promoted or whatever. Sure. But can we have a consistent person? Well, Officer so-and-so was, he was just our guy. He understood us. He learned to understand us. But then there's a change. So that's the only thing that I've heard that's around. The relationships matter, and we correct. Whether by promotion or other reason, you have to start all over again. Right. Keisha, to talk a little bit about community policing and the roles that the SROs, CLOs play with the school district.
Yeah, so, as you talked about high demand in our building, oftentimes we have one officer for, 300, 400, depending on the size of the building, students. I can remember I graduated from Fort Hayes, and I remember my SRO, he's probably still over there, but he was amazing. I mean, they have a lot of interaction. There's some organic relationships that are built. And, they do try to work with the students to figure out, I think somebody said it earlier, why is this my reaction? Maybe think about, they help them with visioning and then goal setting, and then how are your actions aligning with that or not? And so we've seen some positive impact from that, both personally and in our buildings. And also, too, I think it's good to see the person in their uniform and with a face on that's different than the enforcement side of things. So overall, I think I agree, and I think that, too, seeing the community police, like you were talking about the one interaction, this is a positive interaction. That might be your only positive interaction with government at all in a given day or maybe ever, so it is important.
So I'll read this other quick question, give folks a chance to make any final comments as we wrap up here. Colleen Manley, is that correct, Colleen? How many people have been arrested/convicted for any of the 143 homicides that occurred in 2017? So that's a question I'll ask Chief Jacobs and her team to respond to, so we can give exact, precise information. But Colleen, we did get your question, and Chief will be here to talk with you afterwards, or call or email if you need to follow up. And then final question. One was about police staffing in the 13th precinct, and I'll make sure that that's from, is it Margie Mays? Margie, I'll make sure that the chief talks with you as well about how many officers are there and how folks are deployed in the 13th precinct. Final question that I'll speak to you very briefly. Building strong, this is from Aaron, is it Sink? Aaron, are you here? All right. Hi, Aaron. Building strong, vibrant communities requires inclusiveness that does not leave communities and individuals behind. I think we talked a lot about this earlier, especially those looking or lacking financial resources. Economically segregated communities deny opportunity to individuals. The city recently announced plans to incentivize mixed income and affordable housing. Can you share more about this program and other efforts to encourage building mixed income neighborhoods and communities? I would love to talk to you about that for hours. We spent the better part of a year, and it was one of the original charges that I gave to Director Shoney, because we had never even researched it and looked at what our policy and approach was offering to incentives. And so we went through an extensive process. We announced some of the preliminary findings and the framework of a policy at Poindexter just a couple of days ago. But it really gets to the heart of this conversation earlier, that socioeconomic diverse neighborhoods that are inclusive, radically inclusive, are the most strong, stable places for families to thrive. And so any final comments from the panel before we wrap up? I want to thank you again for participating and sharing your thoughts. And I'll start off with Robin. Any final comments?
Any final comments? What have I said that already? What have I already said? Basically, as a representative of the South Side, and I want you all to know that I'm here, but I know that I'm not inclusive of everyone. I appreciate so many of you for everything you've done, and the relationship that we all have. That's my final thought.
Thank you. Denise?
Just to say thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all your staff and all elected officials. But I think the one thing that resonates with me always, because Alvis is in this building, the hub of hope. I hate that Jane and Tanny actually took that, because that's something that I would really love to have for my because
I know them well enough that you can borrow.
I know, right? But I do think that that's what we need. We need a hub of hope, not just here, but we need a hub of hope everywhere, because the relationships with the nonprofits that's in this building, we really work together, and I think it needs to be duplicated. But thank you.
Sheldon?
You know, there's a West African proverb that says, it's not wrong to go back for that which we've forgotten. And it speaks to about the importance of knowing our past to go to the future. As a native of Columbus, that says two things to me, Mr. Mayor. It says, one, it's important for us to, again, have the difficult conversations of understanding the history of how we arrived where we are, that there were systematic things, there were policies that privileged some over others, created certain communities to be where they are now. And I think that's important as we continue to do this work. But
there are a lot of communities around the country that haven't acknowledged that yet.
Exactly.
So that does put us in a great spot.
Exactly. And the final thing I'll say is that also it says to me that as we get excited about all the great things that are happening in Columbus, Columbus doesn't just have an exciting future, but Columbus has an exciting past that I think specifically on the neighborhood level and the community level, it's important as we continue to build towards being the future of our city, that we continue to find the opportunities to let the neighborhood share and neighbors share about the great things that are already existing in our community and the places that we've come from. So thank you again for tonight.
Keisha?
So, you know my theme. Just engage, engage, engage. Find some way to make a contribution if you're not already. You have no idea how much your engagement matters, the seed you're planting, and what future is going to come as a result. So please do consider it. I know it's uncomfortable. We all have our egos and we have a lot to do, and kids can be trying, but please do either engage with one of these other wonderful organizations, become a mentor. Columbus, the us is there for a reason, and we need you. We need all hands on deck so we can continue to grow and thrive for everyone to share in a success. So thank you.
Lori?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate that. Appreciate it. As I sit here and I listen to all of the different words and the efforts, it comes back to relationships. And one of the things that I talk about a lot in our department is, conflict isn't always bad. Conflict is good. It provides an opportunity to build trust. It provides an opportunity to hear ideas. And it provides an opportunity for collaboration. And that's from the very just minuscule issues that are going on to these, organizational or community issues that we have. And so I think this was a wonderful experience and an opportunity for us, and I thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. And again, I would just end with, I think conflict can be good because it leads to good discussions and resolution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ryan, you can close us out?
Yeah, so I'll echo what Lori said. I think that a major theme that we've heard tonight is relationships, ideas around trust and mutuality. I think that while a lot of us in the room are on the same page here, I still think that as a community there's opportunity for us to kind of go beyond our mental models of us and them. Sometimes when we talk about neighborhoods of opportunity, folks don't see themselves in that transformation, and so I think opportunity for us as a community is kind of move beyond those mental models, realize that as all ships rise, we're rising the nature of our city as a whole, and so this idea of us being in this together is really important. In terms of our work at United Way, we are engaging in a lot of the ways that have been shared here today, and one that I just do want to lift up is if anybody in the audience is interested in stepping into community leadership, I would encourage you to look into our Neighborhood Leadership Academy. There are many different types of leaders. You can lead from the front, lead in a way that's exhibiting your gifts, talents, and treasures, and we'd like to be your partner in that, and so that's a relationship that we'd like to have with all of you.
Please join me in thanking all of our panelists for participating tonight. So this is just the first of our State of Our City neighborhood conversations. The next one is February 13 at the J. Ashburn Center on the Hilltop. There we'll be focusing more in on public health and our community's opiate action plan. Now, to close this out, please join me in welcoming Pastor Brian Williams from Hope City House of Prayer, who will wrap us up with benediction.
Well, tonight my heart's been stirred again. How many of you believe that we can do this? And I was thinking about the mayor. I just wanted to say thank you to Mayor Ginther. So could we put our hands together for our mayor? We appreciate all of our elected officials. And tonight's been wonderful. So let's close our eyes and pray. Lord, we come before you tonight and we acknowledge that this city is indeed in your hands. And Lord, all of the plans, all of the things that have been discussed tonight, we bring it before you and we ask for your blessing upon it. We know that your eyes are on Columbus and that you have a hope and a future for this city and the people that live in it. And Lord, we ask you that in the future that Columbus would be known as a city of peace, a city of hope, that more than anything that it would be known as a city of love. We ask you that in this coming year, that God, the murder rate would decline. We ask you that, Lord, that you would give wisdom and divine knowledge and understanding to all those who stand in positions of authority, that, God, you would guide them with every step, with every process that they have to implement to see this city achieve its destiny. We thank you for it tonight and everyone who joined us, and we ask you that your favor would be upon this city, both now and in the future. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor.
This concludes our program. Thank you for attending the 2018 State of Our City Neighborhood Conversation.